Issa Amro has been dubbed the Palestinian Gandhi, a prominent human rights activist in the occupied West Bank who's been recognized by both the EU and the UN. He's been a tireless advocate for non-violent resistance. You might think he would have been welcomed with open arms by both the Palestinian and the Israeli governments. But you'd be wrong. His own Palestinian Authority recently locked him up for almost a week over a Facebook post, and now Israel is putting him on trial in a military court for a series of charges dismissed by international rights groups as baseless. Issa Amro joins me now. You're a well-known, award-winning Palestinian activist, and despite your non-violent activism, you've been arrested by Israel, quote, more times than you can count. Your most recent imprisonment, however, was by the Palestinian Authority for comments you made on Facebook. Why is the Palestinian Authority cracking down on Palestinian human rights activists?
Unfortunately, the Palestinian Authority passed a law called cybercrime law, and it violates the Palestinian people's privacy and the Palestinian people's freedom of expression. The Palestinian Authority is trying to shut off anyone who's criticizing the misconduct or misbehavior of many organizations or many institutions or many leaders. That was wrong. I think the law was passed without a real consultation with the Palestinian civil society or with the Palestinian political leaders. I hope that they drop that law as soon as possible.
So there's no doubt that the main enemy of the Palestinians is the Israeli occupation. But in terms of the actual everyday problems facing Palestinian society today, the latest opinion polls of Palestinian public opinion show that the public there ranks things like poverty, unemployment, corruption above the Israeli occupation and the settlement activities as problems in their everyday life. Shouldn't rights activists on the ground like yourself be focusing your energies first and foremost, therefore, on your own government and your own problems at home before tackling the outside problems? Is that fair?
It's fair, yes. I think that Abu Mazen in the UN said it clear that we are authority without an authority. And occupation is affecting all what you said. The occupation is affecting the Palestinian unemployment high rate. The occupation is affecting everything, but the occupation is trying to escape and put us on a direct
The occupation doesn't force Palestinian
that,
leaders to be corrupt, though, does it?
Corruption is wrong everywhere, and in a way or another, they give them incentives. You know, they in a way or another, the occupation is giving some leaders VIPs, PMCs, businessman cards. So the occupation is the main source of oppression and the main source of corruption, and even crack down on the Palestinian.
Although the occupation didn't force the Palestinian Authority to arrest you.
In a way or another, no. But, it's connected.
Okay. Well, let's turn to Israel and the occupation. You're a prominent advocate for non-violent protest. How effective has non-violent protest been in the occupied territories, do you think, from your own experiences?
Palestinians have very long experience with the non-violence resistance, and I think that civil disobedience is the only method to end the occupation these days in West Bank. The Israel is afraid of that. We, in the ground, we managed to do a lot to strengthen the Palestinian steadfastness in front of the Israeli settlers and the Israeli injustice. We do a lot of protesting. We managed to, in a way or another, to highlight the segregation, the apartheid policies, the discrimination in West Bank and Gaza and Jerusalem. This is how we can manage to stop the settlement expansion and stop all the attacks on the Palestinian people.
And what do you say to Israelis who see you talking non-violence in this very eloquent way, but then see other Palestinians advocating violence? They witness this so-called stabbing intifada with an Israeli family, for example, stabbed to death during dinner. 13-year-old Israeli girl stabbed to death while she slept in her bedroom. In fact, the Israelis say there have been 184 stabbing attacks and 129 attempted stabbings against Israelis since 2015. Do you see that disconnect?
In the contrary, the majority of the Palestinian resistance is a non-violence resistance, and we also how the Palestinians mobilized their movement against the metal detectors outside Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Thousands and thousands of Palestinians were praying in the streets, and they practiced non-violence resistance as it is according to the international consensus. Palestinians are, let's say, sometimes they have individual act, and I think the majority of the children were killed out of law, and it's extrajudicial execution, how the soldiers killed a Palestinian, 15 years old Palestinian girl or boy. That is extrajudicial execution.
And no one's defending the Israeli occupying forces. I'm asking, when Israelis see you speaking about non-violence, they also wonder, well, does this guy condemn all of the stabbing attacks that we've seen happen? Many stabbing attacks. You wouldn't deny them. Do you condemn those attacks?
For sure, I'm against any kind of violence, and I condemn them for many reasons. We should highlight the occupation. We should highlight apartheid discrimination and highlight the Palestinian community resistance against the occupation.
Is it true that you talk down one young Palestinian who was planning an attack of this manner?
I convinced him to use non-violence resistance and to work against the occupation for long term. I don't want him to do one act, then he loses his life. That is very wrong. But we should protect our children from the Israeli oppression and from the Israeli fanatic and extreme soldiers who kill a 15 years old child for having a knife, and sometimes without a knife even.
Many people will listen to you and say, fine, but Palestinians do have a legal right to resist violently. It's guaranteed under international law. You're up against a violent occupying army. You yourself have been beaten and assaulted by Israeli troops. Surely you can understand why so many of your fellow Palestinians over the years who have been assaulted, shot at, imprisoned, had their houses demolished, lived under illegal occupation for 50 years, might want to fight back and not just have a peaceful sit-in, not just do civil disobedience. No one's justifying any attacks on civilians, of course. But if a Palestinian under occupation wants to fight back against an Israeli soldier illegally occupying their land, what's wrong with that in your view?
It's not about what is wrong. It's not about armed resistance versus non-violence resistance. You know, in the contrary, it's the armed resistance is allowed according to the international law to resist the occupiers, but it's about tactics and what is possible and what you win, how you will win. Palestinians practiced popular resistance in the first Intifada, and it went very well, and we were achieving a lot, and we all participated in that resistance.
Do you think the second Intifada, which was identified, defined by suicide terror attacks in the eyes of the West?
We lost a lot from that Intifada, and the price was very, very high. So it's about tactics and strategies, and use what type of resistance will make you stronger. And nowadays we are completely sieged. We are living in almost a big jail in West Bank. So non-violence as a tactic now is the best tool to end the occupation.
So just to be clear, you're not objecting to the moral or legal right of Palestinians to fight back. You're saying from a pragmatic point of view, it doesn't work. This way is a better way in terms
Exactly. This is a better way, and this is something we can use and win with it now. I think civil disobedience will make the cost of the occupation higher. How we can make the cost of the occupation higher? We can make it through our non-violence tactics and our non-violence methodology.
After numerous arrests, you're currently facing a military trial in Israel on charges that the UN believes to be unjustified, which were denounced by Amnesty International, among others, as baseless, politically motivated. You've also been beaten by Israeli soldiers, harassed by Israeli settlers outside your home. Some right-wing Zionist websites have even suggested you should be executed for your crimes against Israel, so-called. Do you worry that if you're convicted and sent to prison, and just for the sake of our international audience, the Israeli military court system has something like a 98-99% conviction rate. Do you worry that if you are convicted, as looks likely, it will discourage other Palestinians from adopting the non-violent approach that you have?
First of all, it's not court. The military court, it's a show. It's a military judge accepts what the military investigator asked him to do. So the military courts exist to strengthen the occupation and prolong the occupation and attack anyone who resists the occupation. So I don't think that I will get fair trial or it will be justice in that court. And the conviction rate is the best example of how Palestinians can't escape from the military court at all.
So why accept the court? Why turn up for the trial even? If you know you're going to be convicted?
I hope that, that the Palestinians will have a consensus among the Palestinian society to boycott the Israeli military court, but I can't be alone, to do that. And I want to advocate how Israel is attacking Palestinian.
How do you boycott a court? If they send you to prison, you can't boycott that. You're willing to go to prison.
I can, I will go to prison, and I will not go to the court. I will refuse to go to court, but they will take me to prison, and they can rule or they take me against my will to the court. I know many Palestinian individuals did that, but they doubled their sentence, or till now it's not.
You're saying it very casually almost. You're sitting here right now in this studio outside of the West Bank, outside of Israel, a free man effectively in the sense that you can walk out of it anytime you like. But you're saying, no, I'm going to go back, I'm going to take part in this show trial, and I'm going to go to prison. And you're fine with that? How do you get into that mindset?
I'm not fine with that. I don't want to go to prison, and I don't think we have any Palestinian wants to go to prison. In the contrary, we want freedom and we want justice. But it's part of my struggle. Part of my struggle to teach the international community who is asking us day and night to do nonviolence resistance, tell them who is the occupation, how they attack human rights defenders, how they take me to trial with 18 military charges, and at the end of the day, they will take me to jail for a few years for practicing only nonviolence resistance. I want to give out a message that Israel is not a democracy. It's a country which doesn't respect any kind of international treaties. Israel doesn't respect human rights defenders or any human rights
that requires
workers.
you going to prison for that message to be heard. That's
there is
the
no change without a price. And sacrifice.
A lot of Israelis have said over the years, where is the Palestinian Gandhi? Partly as a way of deflecting international criticism of their occupation. They say, well, there's no one to talk to. They're all violent. They're all Hamas. They're all suicide bombers. That's the claim from the Israelis. There's no Palestinian Gandhi. You've been dubbed a Palestinian Gandhi. You're a non-violent activist. Do you think that's why you're being targeted by the Israelis? Because the Israelis don't want an actual Palestinian Gandhi who they have to sit down and talk to?
One of the general of the Israeli general said to the media that they can't play Gandhi. They can't go and fight Gandhi, and this is why they attack me as a Palestinian non-violence activist, and this is why they attack many Palestinian human rights defenders and non-violence activists all over Palestine. I'm not the only one who was attacked. Maybe I have more opportunities to speak about what is happening to me, but I have a friend of mine who's a human rights lawyer, and we are both in the same trial. I have many other friends who were in jail for practicing non-violence. Israel is trying to prevent any revolution, anyone who will go and become a Gandhi in the Palestinian land. They don't want the international community to see that Palestinians are using nonviolence resistance, to use the same excuses of security, because everything for Israel is security. They forget that they are occupiers and they have apartheid system and they have discrimination. So we are taking off the security excuse from them when we use nonviolence resistance.
Issa Amro, thanks for joining me on UpFront.
Thank you very much.
That's our show. UpFront will be back next week.